Superleggera, super light, one of the first of the Lamborghini automobiles, a superb example. An exotic like the Ferrari or Maserati, the Lamborghini was designed to look good, go fast, and fill the bill exotic car aficionados expected. The 350, Ferruccio Lamborghini's first effort in an exotic GT car, was better than all expected. Much more sophisticated in construction and style than the Ferrari. All around, it was a much more advanced design than either Ferrari or Maserati. With the alloy body's 12-cylinder motor, twin cam heads, all independent suspension, it took the automobile world by storm. The Lamborghini was introduced at Geneva in 1964, and in that year only 13 cars were constructed. Through 1966, 143 of the 350 GT models found their way out of the factory in a two-place configuration. In 1966, the 400 GT 2+2 appeared, with 247 of this version produced through 1968. The advanced lightweight chassis design, combined with the smoothness of its V12, gave the Lamborghini owner a quiet ride experience when compared to its Italian counterparts. The extremely efficient roadability of the car, due to its independent suspension and sophisticated steering system, made the automobile a superb performer in the 150-mile-per-hour category. Its tubular space frame chassis and alloy bodywork rendered a sensational power-to-weight ratio. The heart of any GT car is, of course, the motor, and the 12-cylinder power plant in the Lambo was designed by Bizzarini from scratch to Lamborghini's specifications. Unlike its competition, the Lamborghini offered dual overhead camshafts in its 4-liter engine, with 6 Weber carburetors, and twin Morelli distributors provided spark to the 12 cylinders. Beautifully designed, carefully created. But how did it perform in the real world? Join us now as 350 GT owner Nick Gutsue describes his experience with a favorite car of his.
I've owned the car about 10 years. I've been in love with Lamborghinis for as long as they've been around, but like most people, I was always afraid to own the car because of the alleged service problems. Although after a friend of mine had this car for a year and had no problems with it, using it as a daily driver to and from Palm Springs, I decided that I could probably live with the car as well. The car does like to be driven. It doesn't like to set. If anything's going to go wrong with it, it's going to go wrong while the car is setting, not while you're driving it. I personally have driven this car to Michigan and back twice, and I've experienced only 2 major problems with it in the 10 years that I've owned it. I had a second gear synchro go bad because I lost a clutch, slave cylinder, lack of fluid. I forced the car into gear on a hill and caused the second gear synchro to go bad. It took me quite some time to get parts for the transmission because this is not a Lamborghini transmission in this particular model. It's a ZF transmission, and they no longer stock parts. However, through Lamborghini of North America, I was able to apply some pressure on ZF, and they did find parts, and I now have a rebuilt new transmission in this car. I did have occasion to overhaul the engine some 2 or 3 years back after a return trip from Michigan. Apparently we got some bad gas along the way, and it caused a valve problem. And since I had it apart to do a valve job, this is after 50,000 miles, we decided to overhaul the entire engine. We never really had a problem getting parts Lamborghini parts. The only problem we ever had with this car was getting ZF parts for the transmission.
While the 350 and 400 series GT cars were being sold in 1966, yet another Lambo was to appear at the 1966 Geneva Auto Show, the P400 Miura. The appearance of this car was the work of Bertone stylist Marcello Gondini, while the chassis design was the handiwork of Bob Wallace at Lamborghini. Wallace was not only responsible for most of the developmental work on the Lamborghini cars, but he was also in charge of all of the test driving through 1974. The first Miura saw the light of day over a year after its Geneva introduction. There were 108 Miuras delivered in 1967 and 184 turned over to owners in 1968. The Miura was quite advanced for its time, a considerable achievement for the small automobile manufacturer. Unlike the tube frame design of its predecessors, the Miura featured a chassis not unlike the modern monocoque configuration, with fabricated sheet metal box sections filled with lightning holes. This example, chassis number 3264, was produced in 1967. Although the chassis were constructed by an independent contractor, the bodies were formed by Bertone from aluminum. The weight-saving techniques kept the dry weight of the Miura down to 2,080 pounds. Very efficient indeed. In 1969, the S version of the Miura was introduced, and a total of 140 of this version were produced during 1969, 1970, and 1971. Improvements in the S included the availability of air conditioning and electric window lifts. Although somewhat retarded in the S, cockpit noise and engine heat residue were still problems in the Lamborghini. The S also weighed some 500 pounds more than its older sister, but an increase of 20 horsepower gave the car 370 total horsepower. Performance? How about 170 miles per hour? Outfitted piece of machinery. Elegance personified. The 370 horsepower were clearly visible through the rear window. The transversely mounted engine transmission unit was an exercise in design excellence and was beautifully executed in aluminum alloys. Enclosed beneath the 12-cylinder motor was a 5-speed all-synchromesh transmission driven through a single dry-plate clutch that was hydraulically operated. In 1971, the final version of the Miura made its appearance, the SV. It had all the updates and featured a more expansive front grille, larger parking lights, and the removal of the famous eyebrows around the headlights. The 4-liter motor was now rated at 385 horsepower, and total weight was increased to 2,740 pounds. Bob Wallace comments on the reliability of the Miura.
A company of that size is very, very difficult that they have enough resources for research and development, and as I stated before, the car became successfully commercially overnight, and only in, so to say, virtually the last versions of it did it approach what you'd call mechanical reliability for a car of this type. The SV was a culmination of countless improvements over the years, which are really needed.
Many of the problems in the Miura were related to heat. The owner of this car, a 1967 model, lives in Southern California and found the cooling system's performance to be marginal. His solution was to remove the radiator and replace the core to a more efficient mode, thereby eliminating the heat problem while maintaining the car's original profile and appearance. The most costly area of repairs on the Miura was, of course, the drivetrain, with its highly complex system of gears, bearings, and alloy housings. Not a repair project for the uninitiated. The SV version was considered to be the most trouble-free of the models, so many earlier cars were fitted with later SV parts, a thing to watch out for when considering the purchase of any Lambo. Also, only one authentic factory open cockpit Miura was produced, although many Miuras have later been converted to roadsters. Another problem that owners have had through the years is the external exposure of the radiator tubes, the water carriers that feed the radiator. They are exposed on either side of the automobile and have created some problems when the car is being jacked up and so forth. For a ride in a Miura. Turn the volume up. It's going to be an experience you won't soon forget. The expansive windshield offers great visibility, but also allows heat from the sun to invade an otherwise beautiful drive. Although visibility is excellent to the front and side, rear visibility above the motor is somewhat edgy at best. Noise level is tolerable until the side windows are lowered. thereby allowing noise to escape through the side vents into the cockpit area. The upward thrust of the front fenders give the driver an excellent reference point when negotiating fast corners. With the 41-inch roofline, we are dwarfed by a Mercedes sedan. At the 1968 Geneva show, Lamborghini unveiled a completely new model, the Espada. Designed from the ground up to seat 4 people, not only was it comfortable, but it rang true to its GT design with a top speed of 155 miles per hour, making it the fastest 4-seater in production. Over 1,200 Espadas were sold through 1978. Unlike its predecessors, the Espada chassis was of the conventional unibody type. The chassis was built by a small local firm, Marchesi. With a wheelbase of 103 inches and a track of 58, the Espada presented a low, wide, racy profile that could transport its 4 occupants in very distinctive style. While maintaining the same name throughout its production life, there were basically 3 Espada series produced. Early versions were rated at 320 horsepower, while those later series boasted 350 horsepower. The Espada had dual fuel fillers and dual fuel tanks, requiring 98-octane fuel for optimum performance. The 4-liter V12 engine had a compression ratio of 10.7 to 1 and was rated at 350 horsepower at 7,500 RPM. The light alloy block carried 7 main bearings, while each of the 2 alloy cylinder heads featured dual overhead cams and a total of 6 side draft Weber carburetors. To make room for air conditioning and required emission control equipment, only 1 distributor was installed to feed the 12 spark plugs. The engine was connected through a single-plate hydraulically operated clutch to an all-synchromesh 5-speed transmission. Independent suspension was used all around, with Koni shocks providing the damping. The Espada's brake boosters and master cylinders were located in the left frontmost of the car in order to accommodate the stunning V12 motor. A long steering shaft made its way up to a ZF Worman sector steering box located in the frontmost part of the engine compartment. A beautiful alloy casting held the air conditioning compressor. The Espada's interior was quite modern and spacious. Its leather seats, both front and rear, held their occupants quite nicely. The design of the dashboard was altered several times during the Espada's production life. Unfortunately, the air conditioning ventilation system never was perfected. The lower glass panel in the back helped in rearward visibility, but hampered safe vision at night due to headlight glare from following vehicles. This Bertone design will always be held as a model of comfort in the GT automobile category. Picture this. It's a quiet Sunday and you're out for a cruise in your favorite toy. It goes fast, looks good, and causes heads to turn. At an intersection, you notice another toy, a toy that has many interesting and historical characteristics. This is the P-51 Mustang, the fighter that during World War II won the war in Europe for the Allies with its ability to fly faster, farther, and higher than any other plane that had been built to that time. After reflecting upon this awesome mass of firepower, you recognize that you, too, hold the key to awesome performance. Because your favorite toy is a Lamborghini Countach. Awesome, unique, powerful, a look of the future. The Countach was debuted at the 1971 Geneva Automobile Show alongside its sister Miura SV. But the Countach stole the show for obvious reasons. The Geneva prototype was a 5-liter car with a tubular steel space frame chassis and a steel body. The 40-inch high Countach was seen as a future star by many. But no cars were produced for sale. At the 1973 show, the Countach LP400 was unveiled. This revised version sported an aluminum body over a revised frame. But no cars were produced for sale. It was 1974 before Lamborghini, with their limited production capability, delivered the first Countach to a waiting world. Lamborghini had a specific purpose for the Countach. Former development engineer Bob Wallace comments.
The car initially weighed 1,000 kilos. I believe it now weighs about 1,300 or somewhere around there. The car was initially very, very small. Now it's grown to be very big. The only thought when we laid down, the car and I were very, very involved in that project in all respects, was the car was made to go quick and that's it. Nothing else mattered. And visibility, all the rest of it was just
Throughout its production years, the Countach continued to grow in many respects. Tire technology had changed, and with the advent of the Pirelli P7 tire, the suspension geometry was revised and wheel well flares were added. Interior revisions were accomplished in 1979, including the fitting of enlarged Stewart-Warner instrumentation. The speedometer now read to 320 kilometers per hour. The Countach's interior is quite comfortable. The steering wheel is adjustable, and the car boasts a full heating and cooling system. And adjustable seats that are truly bucket and perfectly form-fitting. Situated between the seats was the Synchromesh 5-speed transmission, which fed power back through the lower portion of the engine to the differential. The 4-liter V12 changed very little through the years, but in 1982 a 5-liter version of the car became available. The 375 horsepower motor had twin distributors, each providing power to the 6 cylinders on either side. This 1979 model has emission control equipment installed. Visible here are the air pumps. A rear wing was available in 1979. The wing improved straight-line stability, but hampered top speed. In 1983, the American magazine Car and Driver tested a U.S. specification Countach and found its top speed to increase from 150 to 160 miles per hour with the removal of the wing. To apply all of this power to the ground, Pirelli P7 tires are fitted. The rear tires are 345 millimeters wide, sitting on 12-inch rims. As modern as the Countach design appears, it actually dates to 1970, and the aerodynamic characteristics of the car are less than perfect. Hence, the top speed is not as high as one might expect. But, whether at rest or on the prowl, the Countach is in charge. The desirability of the Countach has remained strong. So strong, in fact, that Lamborghini of North America has become involved in importing U.S. legal automobiles. Trevor Thomas of Lamborghini of North America explains.
We have the 5-liter Countach, which is now fully legal, 50-state version. It has the integrated 2.5 mile-an-hour bumpers, front and rear, as you've seen on the car here today. The most significant fact of those bumpers is that we've designed them and styled them to try and fit in with the shape of the car, rather than look like add-ons, which a lot of the bumper systems which people have been using the last few years have tended to do. The most significant feature of the engine to make the emissions meet the requirements is, of course, the addition of fuel injection, which was designed and developed here by ourselves. We've accomplished a certification program with emissions that meet all of the standards right the way through to the end of the 87 model year, as of the 83 model, and we've been carrying over ever since then. The Jalpa, as you've seen today, is fully equipped with all of its safety equipment from the factory. The emissions will be finished on that within about the next month to 6 weeks, and again, that will meet all the standards right the way through to the end of 87. It's going to come out as an 85 model, and then obviously there'll be updates for 86 and 87, but it'll be the same basic engine and emission control system that'll run the whole way through.
Beyond those two cars, what do you see in Lamborghini's future?
The only four-wheeled vehicle that's currently scheduled for production is, of course, the LMA. That's the off-road vehicle derived from the Cheetah. The original Cheetah, you may recall, was a mid-mounted Chrysler V8 engine vehicle. That's now been changed quite substantially to a front-engine vehicle. It now has a Lamborghini 7-litre V12 engine in front, and it's an absolute scorcher, an absolute screamer. The civilian version hasn't been determined yet. It may be the same as the military LMA, but with a 5-litre engine, or we may use the 7-litre engine and change the body shell somewhat. The civilian version of the LMA we're hoping to have here in time for Auto Expo in May this year. It'll also coincide with the Lamborghini Wine Weekend in the Napa Valley, and that'll give us the first chance to get even with some of the highway patrol officers that we're looking for.